Bumpy Johnson versus the Mafia in 1965. The deal that kept Harlem off. The restaurant is too quiet for the crowd inside it. Not silent, just muffled. Like someone turned the volume down on the whole room. Forks scrape plates. Ice shifts in glasses. People talk, but soft. Controlled. Like they know something might happen, and they don't want to miss it. It's late afternoon in Harlem, 1965. The place is called Francesca's, a corner spot with red vinyl booths and checkered tablecloths. Smells like garlic and cigarette smoke. The kind of place where neighborhood people eat Sunday dinner and businessmen settle things over pasta. Today, it's both. Bumpy Johnson sits at a back table near the kitchen door. He's wearing a gray suit, pressed clean, a thin tie, and a hat resting on the bench beside him. His hands are folded on the table. No drink. No food. Just his hands, still, like stone. Across from him, the booth is empty. People know he's waiting. They've known since he walked in 20 minutes ago. The owner didn't say a word, just pointed to the back. Bumpy nodded and sat down. No one's asked him to leave. No one's gone near him either. There's a kid wiping down tables near the window. Maybe 17. Skinny arms, keeps glancing back. A woman 2 booths over hasn't touched her soup. She keeps her purse close. An older man by the door checks his watch twice, then pushes his plate away and leaves. The door chimes. The murmur drops even lower. Bumpy doesn't move. Outside, a black Cadillac pulls up to the curb. 2 men step out, both in dark coats, both Italian. One opens the back door. A third man gets out, shorter, older, thick around the middle, gray hair slicked back, rings on 3 fingers. He adjusts his coat, buttons it once, and walks toward the door. Inside, the restaurant goes still. The man walks in alone. The 2 others stay by the car. He doesn't look around, doesn't pause, just walks straight to the back booth and sits across from Bumpy. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The man's name is Sal Russo. He runs numbers out of the Bronx, collections in Queens, protection across 3 neighborhoods in Manhattan. He answers to people who answer to people. He's been in this city 30 years. He knows how things work. He knows what respect looks like. And he knows when it's being tested. Bumpy watches him. Doesn't say hello, doesn't nod, just watches. Sal pulls out a pack of cigarettes, taps one loose, lights it. He takes a slow drag, leans back, exhales toward the ceiling. "You wanted to talk," Sal says. Bumpy's voice is low, steady. "I wanted you to listen." Sal taps ash into the tray between them. "I'm here. You sent your people into Lenox Avenue last week," Bumpy says. "Twice. Business," Sal says. "Not yours." Sal smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "We don't see it that way. I know how you see it," Bumpy says. "That's why we're talking." The waitress starts toward the table, sees the look on Sal's face, turns back. The kitchen door swings open and shut. Someone drops a pan. The sound cracks through the room like a gunshot. Everyone jumps. Except Bumpy. Except Sal. Sal leans forward. "You think you can run Harlem like it's yours, like it's a country, like we're not already here. You've always been here," Bumpy says. "You've never owned it. And you do?" "I live here." Sal laughs, short and bitter. "So do rats." Bumpy doesn't flinch, doesn't blink. Just keeps his eyes on Sal, calm and cold. "You came in like you own the block," Sal continues. "You collect from our people. You muscle our runners. You tell them they don't answer to us anymore. You think that's respect? I think it's protection." "From who?" "From you." Sal's jaw tightens. He takes another drag, harder this time, and crushes the cigarette into the tray. "You're pushing, Bumpy. You're pushing where you shouldn't. You're taking where you don't belong. We've been taking from Harlem for 20 years. And Harlem's been bleeding for 20 years. Sal sits back. His face is red now. Not from anger, from something deeper. Pride, maybe. Or fear dressed up as pride. He's older than Bumpy. He's been doing this longer. He's seen men like Bumpy before. Men who think they can carve out a piece of the city and hold it. Men who don't understand how the system works, how the money flows, how the real power sits in rooms Bumpy will never enter. But Sal also knows what happens when a neighborhood turns, when people stop being afraid, when they start believing in someone else. You know what you're doing, Sal says quietly. You're making this personal. It's always been personal, Bumpy says. Not like this. Bumpy leans forward, just an inch. His voice doesn't rise. Your people came into my neighborhood. They threatened a man who runs a grocery on 145th. They took money from a woman who cleans offices at night. They told a kid selling papers he owed them 10%, or he'd lose his corner. That's business. That's theft. It's how the city works, not in Harlem. Sal shakes his head. You don't get to decide that. Neither do you. The silence stretches. Outside, a horn honks. A bus hisses past. Inside, the restaurant feels like a held breath. Sal looks at Bumpy like he's trying to figure him out, trying to see what's underneath. Most men, you threaten them, they fold or they fight. Either way, you know where you stand. But Bumpy isn't folding. And he isn't fighting. He's just sitting there, calm as Sunday morning, like he's got all the time in the world. It unsettles Sal, more than he wants to admit. You think you're untouchable, Sal says. You think because people know your name, because they respect you, that makes you safe. I think respect is the only thing that keeps anyone safe. Respect doesn't stop bullets. No, Bumpy says. But it stops the man who fires them. Sal stares at him. You threatening me? I'm telling you the truth. What truth? That you can't hold Harlem the way you hold the Bronx. You can't muscle people here and expect them to stay quiet. You can't walk into a neighborhood that isn't yours and take what you want without consequences. Consequences from who? You? From the people you're stealing from. Sal laughs again, but this time it's hollow. The people. You think the people are going to rise up and fight us? You think they care? I think they're tired. Tired doesn't win wars, it starts them. Sal goes quiet. He looks down at his hands. The rings catch the light. Gold, heavy, expensive, symbols of something. Power, maybe, or just weight. When he speaks again, his voice is different, softer, almost tired. You know what you're asking for, Sal says. I'm not asking. You're asking us to walk away. I'm asking you to stop. Same thing. Not to me. Sal takes a breath. Lets it out slow. If we walk away from Harlem, people will notice. They'll ask why. They'll think we're weak. Then tell them the truth. What truth? That it's not worth the cost. Sal's eyes narrow. What cost? Bumpy doesn't answer right away. He just looks at Sal. Not with anger. Not with hate. Just with a kind of heavy certainty. Like he knows something Sal hasn't said yet. You've got people who depend on you, Bumpy says. Families. Businesses. You've built something. I'm not saying it's clean. I'm not saying it's right. But you've built it. And you want it to last. So think about what happens if this goes the other way. Sal's face hardens. You threatening my family? No. Then what are you saying? I'm saying war is expensive. And you can't win one you can't afford. The words hang there. Not loud. Not sharp. Just heavy. Sal stares at him. His jaw works. His hands curl into fists on the table. For a second it looks like he might stand. might walk out, might end this whole thing. Right here. But he doesn't. Because somewhere, deep down, he knows Bumpy's right. A war in Harlem wouldn't be quick. It wouldn't be clean. It would spill into other neighborhoods. It would draw attention. Police, feds, journalists, people who ask questions, people who dig. And when people dig, they find things. Things Sal and his bosses don't want found. More than that, Sal knows what Bumpy represents. Not just muscle, not just a man with a gun, but a man people believe in. A man they trust. A man who, if he called for it, could turn an entire neighborhood against them. And you can't collect from people who won't open the door. Sal sits back. He pulls out another cigarette, lights it, and takes a long drag. His hands are shaking just a little. "What do you want?" he asks. Bumpy's voice is calm. "Lenox Avenue, 125th to 155th. You leave it alone. That's a lot of blocks. That's the deal. And if we don't, then you find out what happens when you don't." Sal stares at him. Then he laughs. Quiet. Bitter. "You're out of your mind." "Maybe. You think you can hold that?" "I know I can." "For how long?" "As long as it takes." Sal shakes his head. "You're asking me to walk into a room full of people who will want to know why I gave up territory. You know what that looks like? It looks like you made a smart choice. It looks like I got pushed. Then tell them you didn't. They won't believe me. Then make them." Sal's eyes flash. "You don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly what I'm asking." The silence comes back. Thicker this time. Heavier. Sal finishes his cigarette, crushes it out, looks at the table, at his rings, at his hands. When he speaks, his voice is low, almost a whisper. "If I do this," he says, "it's not because I'm afraid of you." Bumpy doesn't answer. "It's because I don't want the headache." "I understand. And if your people step out of line, if they push into our territory, if they so much as look at one of our operations, this deal is done. You hear me?" "I hear you." Sal stands. He buttons his coat, looks down at Bumpy one more time. "You better hope this works," he says. Bumpy looks up at him. "It will." Sal walks to the door. The two men by the Cadillac straighten. He climbs into the back seat. The door closes. The car pulls away. Inside the restaurant, the sound comes back. Slowly. Forks on plates. Voices rising. Someone laughs. The waitress finally brings coffee to a table near the front. The kid with the towel goes back to wiping down booths. Bumpy sits there for another 5 minutes. Doesn't move. Doesn't celebrate, just sits. Then he stands, picks up his hat and walks out. By the next morning, the word is already moving through Harlem. Quiet at first. Whispers in barbershops. Conversations on stoops. Then louder. More certain. The Italians are pulling back. No one knows exactly what happened. No one knows what was said. But people see it. The runners who used to come through on Tuesdays don't show. The collections stop. The threats stop. The pressure lifts, and people start breathing again. It doesn't fix everything. Harlem is still Harlem, still poor, still struggling, still bleeding in 100 different ways. But this one thing, this one piece of the weight, is gone. And that matters. Bumpy doesn't talk about it, doesn't explain, doesn't brag. He just goes back to his life, back to the streets, back to the people who know him, who trust him, who look to him when things get hard. He knows what he did. He knows what it cost. Not in blood, not in money, but in the thing that matters most in a world like his: respect. He walked into that restaurant with nothing but his word and his presence. He sat across from a man who could have had him killed, who had the power, the connections, the history, and he didn't beg, didn't threaten, didn't break. He just made the other man see the truth, that some things cost more than they're worth, that some neighborhoods can't be owned, that some people won't be moved. And in that moment, in that quiet booth in the back of a restaurant in Harlem, something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, not the kind of thing that makes headlines or gets written into history books. Just a deal, a choice, a decision made by two men who both knew what the other could do and chose not to do it. Years later, people will still talk about it, not as a victory, not as a defeat, but as the day Harlem stayed Harlem, the day the line was drawn, the day someone stood up and said no, and the day the other side walked away. Bumpy never called it a win, never framed it as power. He just did what he always did, what he believed in, protecting the people who couldn't protect themselves, holding the line when no one else would, making sure that the neighborhood he called home stayed that way. Not because he was untouchable, not because he was fearless, but because he understood something most people never learn. That real strength isn't about how hard you hit. It's about knowing when not to. And sometimes, the hardest thing in the world is sitting still, staying calm, and letting the other person see the cost of what they're about to do. Bumpy did that. And Harlem stayed off limits. Not forever. Nothing lasts forever. But long enough. Long enough for people to remember what it felt like to be left alone. Long enough for a neighborhood to breathe. Long enough for one man's quiet refusal to mean something. The restaurant is still there. Different name now. Different owners. But the booth in the back is still the same. Red vinyl. Checkered tablecloth. Close to the kitchen door. And every now and then, someone who was there that day will walk past and remember. Not the words, not the details, just the feeling, the weight in the air, the silence, the moment when everything could have gone wrong and didn't.